And he went to Bangor Hospital, but he'd never got seen. He waited 2 hours now, as nobody came near him, so he went, I'm not sitting here. And he left. He discharged himself. He then went up to the woods with his boss, Malcolm Drummond, and he went, look, there's the marks in the grass, look. So what happened next is unparalleled in British ufology, because the police in Scotland were involved. They were called to the scene because it was an assault by persons unknown. So they fenced off the area. They took markings and details of the marks in the grass. The trousers that were ripped were taken to Police Scotland headquarters in Bathgate, and they were analysed by the chief forensic officer, Lester Knibb, who said, and he spoke to me as he said, these trousers were ripped in a mechanical manner. They were not ripped by any forest debris, sharp stones, sharp twigs. These were ripped very forcibly upwards.
Prove to me that you are alive.
It's really good, everybody. Welcome to the one, the only, the Proof to Me That You're Alive podcast. I am your host, Nazarene, and this is the only show in the world that challenges your perception on reality and life and self and gives you that mental kick in your spiritual gut so you can start grasping for air of information just like you did when you were a little kid. So today I am so excited, man. I'm so excited that I woke up 3 hours early because I miscalculated the time. All jokes aside, it's a very special day. Today we have none other than he is a author, he is a filmmaker, he is a UFOologist, he is an expert in the supernatural, in the paranormal, in the Loch Ness Monster. Of course, he was part of the great series and movies and films, some films like UFO Europe, the Untold Stories, the Pentagon UFO Files, the Loch Ness Monster, Hunting for the Truth. He wrote some, I don't know how many, 2,000, 5,000, a million books. I have found 15 myself. I know that there are a lot more. He has been on all of your favorite TV stations that you can think of, news stations that you can think of. I am a humongous fan. As I told this wonderful young man that I'm jumping out of my trousers, as they say in the UK. And so without further ado, this very special guest today, Mr. Malcolm Robinson. I'm going to give you a round of applause. Thank you so much for being here. You look stunning as always. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, yes, very well indeed. Now, it's nice to be on your show.
Thank you so much for being here. I truly am a big fan, and I just want to stress to everyone, I forgot to say this in the intro, with all seriousness, I want everyone to understand that Mr. Robinson has been doing what he does for some 50 years. So I want everyone to take that, with a grain of salt. That this is serious. This is something that this human being has dedicated his life to. And of course, Mr. Robinson, some 20, 15 years ago, whatever, the UFO and paranormal was kind of a ha ha he subject. But now we have the White House, having hearings on it. We have whistleblowers, officials that are coming out. So now I know that a lot of people are tuning in and listening to you and taking you seriously. Sir, so the way we like to start the show is, in short or in long, if you could tell us a little of your story. Where are you from? What was your childhood like? Some people think that this is a cliche question, but I think it's an important question because I can read about you, but the way it comes from you, it comes off differently. So, what was your childhood like, and how did you get introduced to this topic? Because I think this is such an interesting story. Thank you.
Yes, it's been a journey, that's for sure. I was born, would you believe, in a castle in Scotland way
Wow.
back in 1957. And from there, at my childhood, I was always interested and fascinated by things that go bump in the night. You know, I read books at my primary school, watched shows like The Twilight Zone and Outer Limits that came on the television back in the 1960s in Scotland. And this was all fascinating stuff for me. And but I honestly felt at that time that there was no validity to any claims pertaining to ghosts, UFOs, etc. I thought they were just effectively figments of people's imagination. But it's like anything else in life. Once you go through life, once you start speaking to people and putting yourself in haunted houses and physically being attacked by nothing, that's when I came off the proverbial skeptical fence, simply because of the astonishing accounts that I've gathered in my research over 45, 50 years as a researcher. I'm still skeptical, but having said that, I firmly 100 million% believe that there is a continuity after physical material death, that each and every one of us will see our mothers, our fathers, our brothers, our sisters once we pass on. It's not a belief, it's a knowledge. It's like gaining, it's speaking to so many people in near-death experiences and out-of-body experiences. People have come back from the brink of death. As for UFOs, I firmly believe that we're dealing with a non-human intelligence that's always been with us, but we can explore that as we go through the show. But growing up, I was also interested in music. I played in a pop band back in Scotland back in the day, nothing very sensational.
Nice.
And at one point in my life, I was either going to go A, with the band, or B, with the paranormal.
Oh, wow.
I'm so glad I went with the paranormal, and because it's been a marvelous journey now. It's a journey that I'm still on. It's taken me all over the world. I've met so many wonderful people. I've heard so many exciting and astonishing cases that that's why I write the books. Because once people tell me these cases, you don't want to file them away. They've got to get out. They've got to get out into print so that other people somewhere in the world will go, you know what? That happened to me. So it's building a big jigsaw. It's been a great journey, wonderful childhood, and that's in central Scotland. I'm calling you from the town of Socky in Clackmannanshire in central Scotland as we speak. That's where I'm based at the moment, yeah.
Thank you so much for that. It's so captivating. You know, the more I looked into you, your story is so amazing. I wanted to ask you before we go on to the juicy stuff. What were your parents and maybe your siblings or your friends like? What did they feel about your fascination about, you know, all of this when you were a young lad, as you say in the UK?
My mother and father always supported me. They're no longer with us. They're in spirit now, but they always supported me. And, you know, they could see that my desire to learn more about things that were supposedly not meant to know, they were okay with that. My brother, Robert, sadly, he's in heaven as well. He was okay. He was okay about it. He kind of thought it was a wee bit off the wall. But he was an adventurer. He actually married a Finnish girl and he moved over to Finland and he had a fish farm there and he did very, very well for himself. So he thought I was okay, you know. My friends at work, when I started my first job, they thought I was crazy. They thought I was off the wall. And again, there was one chap, I'll tell you a quick story. There was a chap called Bobby Smith and he says, Malcolm, you're crazy. There's no such things as ghosts and life after death. You're off your head. But I'll tell you what, whenever I die, and God forbid, Malcolm, it'll be many, many, many years from now, if there is such a thing as a life after death, I'll come back and I'll prove it. And I went, okay, Bobby, okay. So many, many years went by, Naz. And I woke up about 5 o'clock in the morning to go to work. I started at 6 a.m. in the morning. I goes downstairs into the kitchen and I put on the kettle to make myself a cup of tea. Very quiet. The house was quiet. And then suddenly I felt a presence. I felt as if there was somebody standing behind me. And I slowly turned round and saw nothing. I went, wow. So I went into my work and I went into the men's mess room where everybody congregates before they go on the shop floor. And
Mm.
everybody, all my friends were like that. And I says, guys, cheer up. What's the matter? Oh, did you not hear? Hear what? Wee Bobby Smith died last night.
Oh my God.
That was the man who said many years before, if ever there's such a thing as a life after death, I'll come back now. I never saw the man, but
Hmm.
by Christ, I felt a presence in that empty kitchen when I was getting up about 5 in the morning. And so, going back to my family and friends, as you quite rightly said there, some people scoffed, but as I progressed in the early years when I was working, the people would come to me, my friends would come to me, have you seen this in the paper?
Hmm.
Have you looked at this? So I think now, more so with the advent of more television stations and satellite stations, more and more young people have now been thrust into this wonderful world of the paranormal.
Right.
They fully understand that there is a subject here. There is something to be admired and researched. So things are on the up. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's certainly a shift happening. I myself was born and raised in Ukraine, grew up in New York, and actually recently, the way I got reminded about you, I seen you on the Ludi, one of these Russian channels. I'm sure you know Ladov that came to interview you,
Oh yeah.
and and it reminded me, well, this is what I wanted to ask you, because see, Eastern culture, we're more like open to these things. It has been with us, we don't question these things.
Yeah.
But this is what I wanted to ask you, because we know the way our planet is, the way electromagnetism is, and the ley lines that cross certain locations, like the Carpathians, like the in the UK you have, and in the location of the Hopi Indians. So this is my question: why do you think Scotland has been such a hotbed for UFO activity?
Well, Scotland as a nation has been touched by the UFO presence. I'm no denying that. And that's since time immemorial. We have sightings going way back to the Roman occupation of certain parts of Scotland. Clearly, they described them in their writings as shields in the sky. That's how the Romans depicted them. Um, we are fortunate enough that a big part of Scotland obviously is desolate. Got the Highlands, the Grampian region,
Mhm.
and there's parts of Scotland that is open land, so to speak. But yes, we're no different in Russia and Canada and America and France, etc. We have been touched by the UFO presence. The UFO shapes are all shapes and sizes, from cylindrical balls of spheres, strange lights, oblongs, cigar shaped, the classic flying saucer shape, like two soup plates joined rim to rim. All these shapes have been seen in Scotland, so much so that obviously we went down to 10 Downing Street,
Mm.
myself and a fellow councillor, to petition the various prime ministers over the years, John Major, Gordon Brown, Tony Blair, Rishi Sunak, demanding that the Scottish Government open up a governmental inquiry into these amazing sightings in Scotland. But sadly, it fell on deaf ears, and no such undertaking came forward from the British or Scottish Government.
Yeah, that's one thing I forgot to mention to you, that you have throughout the years received letters from prime ministers and such. And I think one thing that people are now catching on to, certainly in America, with all the drones activity that we had last year in New Jersey, where I am right now, is that, now it's becoming a national security question. But I want to go back to a big event. I think that it was part of your life, as I understand. 1979, there was an incident that happened to a couple. You actually remade a 3D model of this incident. So I will say no more. What was this incident, and how important was this for your life?
Yeah, if you're referring to the 1979 event, which I'm sure you are,
Yeah.
that was entitled the Decmont Woods UFO Incident. And it happened to a forestry worker by the name of Robert Taylor. And he was a war hero, you know, prior to this event. He went over to France on D-Day 5 to help liberate France from the Nazi occupation. In point of fact, his regiment helped to liberate Bergen-Belsen, the Nazi concentration camp. So he was a war hero. When he came back to Scotland, he settled down near Pitlochry. He then moved to a place called Deans, near Livingston. It's a small town, and he stayed there for a number of years. Now, like most people, he had no interest in UFOs, none at all. He had heard about it on TV and radio, like we all have, but it wasn't a big thing in his life. You know, put it to one side. All that changed, Naz, on the morning of November the 9th, 1979. He was employed by the Livingston Development Corporation in the Forestry Department. He was a forestry foreman. And part of his job was to ensure that no cattle or sheep strayed into the woods, got lost, and generally just make sure the woods are in good shape, you know. So he drove up to Decmont Woods in his pickup truck, accompanied by his Irish red setter dog, Lara. A journey he had made many, many times before. Jumped out the truck, started walking down the forestry ride, trees to the left, trees to the right. As they're walking down this forestry ride, it came upon a clearing in the forest.
Wow.
And he was astonished because there was a massive 20 to 30 foot round object. There's this round object just above the grass with a flange going around its perimeter and these cross-like projections sticking up from the flange. And he's standing there. He couldn't believe what he's looking at, you know. Oh. It was solid. And then it dematerialized, then rematerialized, dematerialized. You could see the trees in the background when it disappeared, then it came back, solidified again. And of course, his dog is barking furiously beside him. And then, as if this strange scenario couldn't get any more bizarre, it did. For what resembled, if you can imagine in your mind's eye, what resembled two Second World War sea mines, those spiky balls, those spherical balls with the spikes that bobbed about the North Atlantic. If any ship came in contact with these mines, bang. Similar to that, descended, boom, from beneath this hovering object, impacted on the grass and started rolling across the grass towards him. He was frightened out of his mind. They stopped, and then these rods extended to his very person.
Prove to me that you are alive.
Grabbing him forcibly at the hips and pulling him upwards. And at that point, he remembers a swishing sound, as if you had a cane and you swished it in the air, and then a terrible, pungent smell of, like, he described it as burning brake line, you know, in your car. If you put your foot on the brakes and the smell comes up from the footwell, a smell, and then bang, he lost consciousness. When he regained consciousness, thank God, this large UFO had gone, the smaller objects were gone. What were there, though, were over 40 holes in the grass, triangular and circular marks in the grass that were not there before. He had a nasty graze under his chin, he had a graze on his forehead, his trousers were ripped where these objects had grabbed him. His jersey was all muddy. So he went back to his pickup truck to radio base. He had to phone his boss. He couldn't speak, he'd lost his voice. Then he managed to somehow reverse the truck into a small, shallow ditch, and the back wheels are spinning and spinning. He couldn't get out the ditch. So he had to stagger back to his home in Deans, a small town, small village. And when his wife saw him now, she went, what's happened to you? Look at you. What's happened to you? And he said these immortal words. He said, and I can only say it as he said it, I've been attacked. You've been attacked by men? No, not by men, by a UFO thing. Oh, come inside. There are no such things as UFOs. And then she realised, wait a minute, I've been married to this man for over 40 years. He would never, ever, ever make up a story like this. She phoned the doctor, trying to cut a long story short, she phoned the doctor. He attended the family house. He did some tests on Bob's heart rate. His heart rate was elevated. You could see the greys under his chin, the greys on his head. And he went to Bangor Hospital, but he never got seen. He waited 2 hours now as nobody came near him. So he went, I'm not sitting here. And he left. He discharged himself. He then went up to the woods with his boss, Malcolm Drummond. And he went, look, there's the marks in the grass, look. So what happened next is unparalleled in British ufology, because the police in Scotland were involved. They were called to the scene because it was an assault by persons unknown. So they fenced off the area. They took markings and details of the marks in the grass. The trousers that were ripped were taken to Police Scotland headquarters in Bathgate, and they were analysed by the chief forensic officer, Lester Knibb, who said, and he spoke to me, Naz, he said, these trousers were ripped in a mechanical manner. They were not ripped by any forest debris, sharp stones, sharp twigs. These were ripped very forcibly upwards. And in 1993, I think it was, we placed a large stone cairn. And a few years ago, with the help of the West Lothian Council, we managed to get some signage put up in Decmont Woods, because people were coming from all over the world to see this famous site, and they couldn't find it. So we put marker, UFO trail this way, and a lot of signage at the scene as well. Just to finish the case, though, I honestly believe the testimony of Robert Taylor. He had no qualms to make this story up. He didn't want anybody to know about it. He shut down as soon as the press became involved. And before he passed away, he says, Malcolm, how I wish you had have been there and saw this incredible thing. Now, since I wrote my book, The Decmont Woods UFO Incident, a number of people have came forward with similar sightings in the sky the week before and the week after. One person, when he was a small boy, said, yeah, I remember it. I went up to Decmont Woods the following day and I saw a number of military personnel, with the camouflage gear on and everything. And so there clearly something's going on there, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I think the most important thing that when you retell this story is because you said that the conviction that this man told this story, that you could see by him that he was not making this up, like you just knew that he was telling the truth. Plus, somebody with that kind of past, with that kind of resume, a man of war, never believed in UFOs. Mr. Robinson, besides this incident, as far as your research goes, what were some of the other incidents around the world, maybe Roswell or some other ones, that you can say that these are legitimate recounts of someone actually went through this? What are some of the most important ones we should be looking out for?
Well, there's a number of UFO abduction cases and close proximity cases that I'm very, very concerned about the world over. The Cash Landrum case, obviously, is a big case in America. A lot of people speculate that was a United States vehicle being escorted by these Chinook military helicopters. But the radiation burns that the family got, they destroyed their lives, etc. They tried to claim for compensation from the military, if it was military. They just got a dead end. One of the big Scottish cases in America, in Scotland, is the A70 UFO incident. Are you aware of that one?
Yeah, yes, sir. Yep.
Okay. Would you like me to relate that to
Please, yes, please. Yep.
And again, as a researcher, Naz, it's okay, talking to people about lights in the sky and strange things I've seen. But what defines the subject that you and I love so much is the abduction phenomena. Now, I've obviously read and heard about a number of abductions coming from America and the rest of the world, of course, in Barney Hill and various others. And but I had never at that point researched any of these cases, so I couldn't really, truly give any status on what these were until 1992, when two men, Gary Wood, who was employed as an ambulance repair driver for Scottish ambulances, and his friend Colin Wright, who was a painter and decorator. Now, again, these guys, no interest in UFOs. You know, they had heard about it like we all have, I mentioned before, no interest. On that August evening in 1992, they were travelling in their car from Edinburgh to a small village called Tarbrax. And the journey should only have taken about 35 minutes. So when they left Edinburgh, the road travels out and it's just farmland, fields for miles, a little country house, a reservoir, sheep, cows for miles. Very, very lonely stretch of road. They've travelled down there many times to see these friends. They were going to see these friends. And as they're travelling down there late in the evening, they approached a blind bend. And sitting above this blind bend, about 20, 30 feet in height, was this two-tiered, disc-shaped object. Very, very polished, very shiny. And they went, well, what's this? This is not a helicopter, it's not an aircraft. What is this? So rather than stop the car and go back, they decided to continue on their journey underneath this hovering object. So I've done this in a number of shows. Imagine this hand is the UFO, this hand is the car. As the car was directly underneath this hovering object, this object emitted a heavy, silver, shimmering curtain of light. It just hit the top of the car. And as soon as this sparkling light hit the top of the car, Naz, bang, both men were enveloped in total and inky blackness. They couldn't see their hands in front of their face. They couldn't see each other. They couldn't see the dashboard of the car. Are we dead? That's what they thought. Is this death? Is this what's going on here? Seconds later, but they're not sure how long truly. Thankfully, they regained the sight. The car's on the wrong side of the road. They had to pull the car back over to the other side of the road, and they just screamed away and went to their destination, and they knocked on the occupant's door. No answer. No answer. Eventually, a window opened up, and the lady of the house says, what time do you call this? What do you mean? You're an hour and a half late. You should have been here an hour and a half late ago. The journey, as I said, should only have taken 35 minutes. They were over an hour and a half later from that time. So they proceeded to tell occupants in the house that they had seen this UFO. They got laughed out of the house, more or less. You know, they didn't believe it. That night, and subsequent nights thereafter, they had strange dreams of these small grey beings, 3.5, 4 feet tall, large pear-shaped heads, black inky almond-shaped eyes. They came into their dream world. Then they found scars on their body that previously were not there. We all know our bodies. Where do these come from? Scoop-like, semicircular marks on their body. So to cut a long story short, Gary went to his local library and pulled out a book about UFOs. It had our contact address, Strange Phenomena Investigations. He contacted me, and at that time I advocated the use of hypnotic regression as a tool to lift the veil, lift the subconscious mind and release any possible memories. It's not the best of tools. Today, you know, I would probably use it, but I wouldn't put any credence on it. Why? Simply because people can lie under hypnosis. They can fabricate things. It could be something known as cryptonesia. Now, what that means is they've read it as a wee boy in a book, and they've pushed it to the back of their mind. And then under hypnosis, this jumbled memories surface, thinking it happened to them. The same with, reincarnation and stuff. It may not be cryptonesia that they've read in the book. It may be a genetic thing. So, for instance, if I regress you, and you may come out with a story of a seafaring captain of the 16th century, it wouldn't necessarily be you. It would be your great-great-grandfather. Genetically, somehow the genes in your body is bringing forth these memories. Speculation on my part. Anyway, I'll lose the story. So we subjected both men to hypnotic regression. And what I'm about to tell you is what came out of that. The conscious recall was only ever of seeing the craft above the road, the sparkling light, then blackness. That was conscious recall. Under hypnosis, this is what happened. The car was stopped on the road. 3 or 4 small grey beings came over to the car and took Gary and Colin from the car. They couldn't do anything. They were immobilized. Gary was placed, would you believe, on a flat stretcher, but none of these small beings were carrying it. It was free floating. Very, very rare in UFO lore anywhere. I think there's only one case I've heard about it. On board the object, Gary was stripped naked. He was placed on a flat raised table. He says, Malcolm, I couldn't move a muscle. I desperately want to punch one of these little fellas. He says, I couldn't move. And one of them had a pendulum-like device. He was moving it over Gary's stomach. He says, Malcolm, it was like somebody had their hand into my stomach and was pulling all my entrails. The pain was tremendous.
Wow.
And he also saw various things in the room as well. You know, this can-shaped device rose up to his head. It levered up and it was spinning around his head. I mean, I could be on this case for the rest of the day, and I know our time is short. So I honestly believe that these guys did have this UFO abduction experience. Gary passed the BBC lie detector test. And I remember his wife at the time, they're now divorced, she never believed her husband, until one night she gave me a telephone call. She says, Malcolm, last night Gary was sleeping in the bed. He was sleeping, sound asleep. I was reading a book. I was reading my book, closed the book, put the book on the bedside cabinet. About 20 seconds later, small, childlike hands grabbed my ankles and pulled me forcibly down the bed. Whereas my head was on the pillow, it's now down there. I looked and I saw 3 small grey beings. They released my ankles and they just fell through the wall and disappeared. She says, Malcolm, I'm so sorry. I firmly believe my husband now. And just one final story on this. It's in the book as well, the 70 book. Gary said, he says, Malcolm, I woke up one night. I don't know why, but I woke up. And what do I see? I saw one of these small beings at the foot of my bed. I says, come on, Gary, you sure you're not dreaming? No, I wasn't, Mom. I was wide awake. And I says, right, this is my domain. This is my house. I'm going to get you. So Gary threw the cover. I know sounds crazy. Gary threw this covers off his bed. He ran to this little being and he punched him. And this little being done a somersault backwards, stood up, and then raced towards Gary. And Gary says, the last thing I remember was an explosion of white light. And I just woke up on the bedroom floor. I says, you sure it wasn't a dream? No, it was real. So, I mean, the abduction phenomena, Naz, we could argue the point, why. It's been happening since time immemorial. Why are they still taking people from the comfort of either their beds or their cars or whatever? It just infuriates me. It really does.
Thank you so much for that story, man. You tell us these stories are so captivating when you tell them. So to stay on for a little bit on the abduction subject, I really wanted to know your opinion. Besides you or after you, there have been a couple other prominent figures in the UFO, or what we call the UAP now, subject for the last 30, 40 years. People like Bob Lazar, people like Dr. Stephen Greer. Now I wanted to stay on Dr. Stephen Greer. I'm not asking you about his character or anything, but he's claiming, as I'm sure that you know, that these beings, they are good in nature, and they have no reason to abduct people, because if they really wanted to know, if they really wanted to, with the technology that they have, they could destroy the whole planet. So there's no reason for them to abduct people. So I wanted to know your opinion, because obviously your knowledge is way more extensive than anyone else's in the last 50 years. So what do you think of that claim, that there's no reason for these beings to be abducting people?
Prove to me that you are alive.